The evening air felt crisp as Lily hurried down the busy street toward Le Ciel, clutching her worn backpack. She was running late for her shift, something that rarely happened. For 3 years, she had been the most punctual waitress at the upscale restaurant, a fact her manager often mentioned when newer staff complained about the early start times. "Sorry, Mr. Chen," she called out, slipping through the staff entrance at the back of the restaurant. "Bus broke down halfway here." Mr. Chen looked up from the reservation book and checked his watch. "You've got 7 minutes to change. We're fully booked tonight, plus the Harrison Foundation Gala is happening in the Grand Ballroom." Lily's stomach tightened. The annual charity gala was one of the biggest events Le Ciel hosted. It meant bigger tips, but also more pressure, more judging, eyes and sore feet that would ache well into tomorrow. She quickly changed into her uniform in the small staff room. Crisp white shirt, black vest, black pants, and the thin black tie that always felt too tight around her neck. As she tied her long brown hair back into a neat bun, her co-worker, Tia, burst into the room. "Did you hear?" Megan called in sick. "Again." Tia rolled her eyes as she applied a fresh coat of lipstick. "Third time this month." "Let me guess. Mr. Chen is scrambling to find someone to cover her section?" Lily asked, already knowing the answer. Worse. She was supposed to be on the gala service team tonight. 6 servers for 300 guests isn't gonna cut it. Before Lily could respond, Mr. Chen appeared in the doorway, his usually calm demeanor slightly frazzled. "Lily, I need you to switch to the ballroom tonight. I know you weren't scheduled for it, but you're my most experienced waitress who knows the wine service protocol." She wanted to say no. Tonight was supposed to be a regular dinner service. Difficult enough, but at least familiar. The gala meant dealing with the city's elite, people who could spend on a single bottle of wine what Lily earned in 2 weeks. But she also knew that Mr. Chen rarely asked for favors, and when he did, he remembered them. "Of course," she said, forcing a smile. "I'll head up right now." Mr. Chen's relief was visible. "Thank you. Find Pavel when you get upstairs. He's coordinating the service tonight." The grand ballroom occupied the entire 5th floor of the building. Unlike the restaurant's warm, intimate atmosphere, the ballroom was designed to impress with soaring ceilings, massive crystal chandeliers, and floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city skyline. As Lily stepped out of the service elevator, she was greeted by a flurry of activity. Staff members hurried in every direction, carrying trays of glassware, adjusting table settings, and arranging elaborate flower displays. Pavel, the stern-faced head waiter for special events, spotted her immediately. "Ah, Mr. Chen sent reinforcements, good." He thrust a tablet into her hands. "Memorize the wine pairings for each course. You'll be handling tables 7 through 12 west side of the room. These are important people, so no mistakes." Lily nodded, scanning the information. 5 courses, each with a specific wine pairing. The main course offered guests a choice between Chilean sea bass and aged prime rib, which meant keeping track of who ordered what. She'd need to be attentive without being intrusive, the delicate balance of high-end service. "Who's attending tonight?" she asked, trying to prepare herself mentally. Pavel raised an eyebrow. "The usual suspects. Mayor and his wife. The Harrisons, obviously, since it's their foundation. Several tech company CEOs. A famous pianist is performing later, Ryuichi Tanaka. And I heard whispers that film director Nolan might make an appearance." Lily's heart skipped at the mention of Tanaka. She'd never seen him perform live, but she owned recordings of his concerts, saved up for months to buy them. His interpretation of Chopin had gotten her through countless late nights when sleep wouldn't come. For a brief moment, she was transported back to her childhood living room, where an upright piano once stood. Her fingers remembered the feel of the keys, the hours of practice, the dreams she once had. Before everything changed. Before the piano was sold to pay medical bills. Before music became something she only listened to, never created. "Lily? Are you listening?" Pavel's sharp voice pulled her back to reality. "Yes, sorry. 5 courses, tables 7 through 12, west side." "Good. Guests arrive in 45 minutes. Help finish setting the tables." The next hour passed in a blur of activity. Lily moved efficiently between tasks, her body operating on autopilot, while her mind wandered occasionally to Tanaka and what pieces he might play tonight. Would she get to hear him perform, or would she be too busy in the service areas? By 7 o'clock, guests began to arrive. Women in designer gowns that probably cost more than Lily's yearly rent, men in tuxedos that actually fit them properly, not like the rental ones she'd seen at her cousin's wedding. They air-kissed each other's cheeks and laughed too loudly at jokes that weren't funny, a performance of wealth and status that Lily had observed countless times. "Champagne, ma'am." Lily offered a glass from her tray to a woman draped in diamonds, who took it without making eye contact. That was how the night continued, Lily moving between her assigned tables, invisible except when needed. Pour the wine, clear the plates, answer questions about ingredients, smile and nod, disappear and reappear like a ghost. During the second course, she overheard snippets of conversation from Table 9. Completely self-made, started in his garage, just donated $5 million to the Children's Hospital, youngest CEO in the industry. Lily wondered what that felt like, to have accomplished so much that strangers discussed you with admiration. To have enough money that giving away millions was something you could do. Her own bank account had exactly $742.16, and she was proud of that small amount, saved carefully over months for community college classes she hoped to take next semester. Between the third and fourth courses came the speeches. The ballroom lights dimmed slightly as Mrs. Harrison, an elegant woman in her 60s, took the stage to talk about her foundation's work, providing music education to underprivileged children. Lily paused by the wall, listening intently. "When we remove arts education from schools, we tell children that creativity isn't valuable," Mrs. Harrison said, her voice passionate. "Every child deserves the chance to discover if music lives in their soul." Lily felt a lump form in her throat. Music had lived in her soul once. Sometimes she thought it still did, dormant but not dead, waiting for a chance that might never come. After the speeches, she continued her duties, serving the main course with practiced precision. At table 12, a man in a navy blue tuxedo actually looked at her, really looked at her, as she served his sea base. "Thank you," he said simply, his eyes kind. Those two words, so rarely spoken to servers at events like this, made Lily smile genuinely for the first time that night. "You're welcome, sir. Enjoy your meal." As dessert was being prepared in the kitchen, Lily noticed a commotion near the stage. Pavel was speaking intensely with the event coordinator, both looking concerned. Curious, she moved closer, pretending to adjust the place settings at an empty table. "What do you mean he's sick?" the coordinator was saying, her voice rising with panic. "He's supposed to perform in 20 minutes. "Mr. Tanaka was fine during rehearsal this afternoon," Pavel replied. "But he's now violently ill. Food poisoning. He thinks. He can barely stand, let alone perform." The coordinator pressed her fingers to her temples. "This is a disaster. The musical interlude is right before the donation pledges. We need something to set the mood, make them feel emotional and generous." "Perhaps we can extend the speech portion," Pavel suggested, "and bore them into closing their wallets." "No. We need music. Can we find another pianist on such short notice?" Lily's heart raced as she listened. Tanaka wouldn't be performing. The disappointment was sharp, but something else was building inside her. A wild, impossible idea that she tried to push away even as it took root. How long had it been since she'd played? Really played, not just tapped out simple melodies on the electronic keyboard in her apartment with the broken keys and tinny sound? 8 years? 9? But she still practiced in her mind. Still played phantom pianos on tabletops and counters when no one was watching. Still heard the music in her dreams. The grand piano on stage gleamed under the lights. Beautiful. Waiting. Like a door to another life. A life she might have had. Lily looked down at her hands. A waitress's hands now, not a musician's. Calloused from carrying heavy trays, not from hours of practice. What was she thinking? She couldn't possibly. But Mrs. Harrison's words echoed in her mind. Every child deserves the chance to discover if music lives in their soul. Lily wasn't a child anymore. But the music, it was still there. She felt it stirring, awakening, from its long sleep. Before she could talk herself out of it, she slipped away from the tables and headed toward the staff room. Her break wasn't scheduled for another hour, but this chance wouldn't come again. With trembling fingers, she texted Tia, "Cover my tables for 15-minute emergency. We'll explain later." The response came quickly. "You owe me big time. 15 min only." That was all she needed. 15 minutes to remember who she used to be. 15 minutes to play for an audience like she'd once dreamed of doing. 15 minutes that might cost her job, but would give her something more valuable. A chance to let the music out just once. Lily took a deep breath, removed her server's apron and straightened her uniform. Then, heart pounding like a drum in her chest, she walked toward the stage and the waiting piano. Lily's heart hammered against her ribs as she approached the stage. The grand piano stood there like a sleeping giant, its polished black surface reflecting the chandelier lights. A few guests glanced her way, confusion crossing their faces as they watched a waitress moving toward the stage instead of circulating, with trays. The event coordinator, a thin woman named Ms. Reed with a permanent crease between her eyebrows, was still huddled with Pavel near the side of the stage, both frantically scrolling through their phones. Probably calling every pianist in the city, Lily thought. They hadn't noticed her yet. 15 minutes. That's all she had before Tia would need help again. 15 minutes to remember who she used to be. Lily climbed the 3 small steps to the stage, each one feeling higher than the last. The spotlight wasn't on yet. Small mercies, but she still felt exposed. Vulnerable. What was she thinking? These people had paid thousands of dollars per table to attend this gala. They expected excellence, perfection. She hadn't touched a real piano in nearly a decade. For a moment, doubt paralyzed her. She stood frozen beside the piano bench, one hand resting lightly on its edge. She could still walk away, return to her tables, pretend she'd never had this crazy idea. But then her gaze fell on the program someone had left on top of the piano. Ryuichi Tanaka was supposed to play 3 pieces: Debussy's Clair de Lune, Beethoven's Moonlight Sonata, first movement, and Chopin's Ballade No. 1 in G minor. The Chopin piece. Her piece. From ages 12 to 16, she had practiced that. Ballade until her fingers ached, until her mother called through the apartment walls to please take a break. It was the piece she had played at her last recital before everything fell apart. The piece she still played in her dreams. Before she could reconsider, Lily sat down at the bench and adjusted it to her height. The keys gleamed up at her. Ivory and ebony, familiar yet strange. She placed her hands in her lap, closed her eyes, and took a deep breath. "Excuse me." A sharp voice cut through her concentration. "What do you think you're doing?" Ms. Reed had spotted her and was hurrying toward the stage, Pavel close behind. "The pianist is sick," Lily said, surprising herself with the steadiness in her voice. "I can fill in." Ms. Reed's eyes widened in disbelief. "You? A server?" The way she said server made it clear what she thought, that Lily couldn't possibly possess the skill or talent to replace a world-renowned pianist. Maybe she was right. "I studied piano for 10 years, Lily said, the words rushing out. "I know all 3 pieces in the program. Please, just give me a chance." Ms. Reed looked to Pavel, who shrugged helplessly. "We have nothing else lined up. The donation appeal is in 20 minutes. A small crowd had gathered now. Guests at nearby tables were watching the exchange with interest. Champagne glasses paused halfway to lips, whispers starting to circulate. Lily caught fragments. "Waitress thinks she can play. How embarrassing. Should call security." Her cheeks burned. This had been a mistake. She started to rise from the bench. "Wait." A new voice entered the conversation. Lily looked up to see the man from table 12, the one who had actually thanked her, approaching the stage. "Let her try." Ms. Reed turned to him, her demeanor instantly changing. "Mr. Winters, I assure you we're handling this unfortunate situation by arguing with someone who's offering to help." Mr. Winters raised an eyebrow. "I'd like to hear her play. Wouldn't you all?" He turned to the growing audience, many of whom nodded, more out of curiosity than support. Ms. Reed looked trapped. "Very well. One piece. If it's not up to standard, we move on immediately." Lily nodded, her mouth dry. "Thank you." Mr. Winters gave her a small smile and returned to his table. Ms. Reed stepped back, arms crossed, clearly expecting disaster. Lily turned to the piano again, the weight of hundreds of eyes pressed against her back. She placed her fingers on the keys, surprised by their cool smoothness. Different from her old upright piano at home. Different from the cheap keyboard she occasionally played at the community center. This was a Steinway concert grand, the kind she'd only read about in music magazines. She started with Clair de Lune. It seemed safest, beautiful but not as technically challenging as the Chopin. The first notes floated into the air, tentative at first. Her fingers felt stiff, uncooperative. A slight fumble on the third measure made her wince. "Focus," she told herself. "Just focus." She closed her eyes, shutting out the audience, the ballroom, her uniform, her identity as a waitress. In the darkness behind her eyelids, she was just a musician again. Just Lily and the music. The piece began to flow more naturally. The gentle, dreamy melody took shape, building and receding like waves against a shore. Her body remembered what her conscious mind had forgotten: the proper pressure on the keys, the subtle use of the pedals, the slight hesitations that breathed life into the notes on the page. As the final notes of Clair de Lune faded away, Lily opened her eyes, suddenly remembering where she was. The room had fallen completely silent. Had she done that badly? She turned slightly, bracing for disappointed faces or worse, pity. Instead, she saw rapt attention. Every eye in the room was fixed on her, expressions ranging from surprise to wonder. Even Ms. Reed's mouth had fallen slightly open. "Continue," Mr. Winters called from his table. "All three pieces." A smattering of applause followed his words, growing stronger as more guests joined in. Lily's eyes stung with unexpected tears. She blinked them away and turned back to the piano. The Moonlight Sonata came next. As her confidence grew, so did her expressiveness. This wasn't just about playing the right notes in the right order. This was about the story within the music, the longing, the beauty touched with sadness. Her body swayed slightly as she played, lost in the haunting melody. When she finished the second piece, the applause was immediate and enthusiastic. Lily barely heard it. Her mind was already on the final piece, the Chopin Ballade, her piece. This was the true test. Technically demanding, emotionally complex, it required everything she had to give. For a terrifying moment, she wasn't sure she could remember it all. But as her fingers touched the keys for the opening notes, something miraculous happened. Her hands remembered. Every hour of practice, every frustration, every triumph came flooding back. The music lived in her muscles, in her bones, in places deeper than conscious memory. The beginning was deceptively simple, almost questioning. Then came the main theme, sweet and nostalgic. As the piece progressed, it grew more passionate, more urgent. Lily's fingers flew across the keys during the difficult runs, her left hand providing the steady pulse beneath the right hand's increasingly dramatic flourishes. She was dimly aware that she had an audience, but they no longer mattered. This was between her and the music now, a conversation they had started years ago and somehow, improbably, were continuing tonight. The final section of the ballade was a test of technique and stamina. Cascading notes, complex harmonies, building to a climax that demanded everything. Lily gave it everything. Her fingers ached, unused to such demands after years of carrying trays instead of playing concertos, but she pushed through the pain. As she struck the final, powerful chords, something broke loose inside her chest. A dam holding back years of abandoned dreams and silent music. The last note rang out, hanging in the air like a question. For 3 heartbeats there was absolute silence. Then the room erupted. Applause thundered through the ballroom. People rose to their feet, napkins slipping forgotten to the floor. Someone shouted "Bravo" from the back, and others took up the cry. Lily sat frozen on the bench, unable to process what was happening. This couldn't be real. Any moment now she would wake up in her small apartment, the dream already fading. But the applause continued. Real. Deafening. Ms. Reed appeared at her side, her previous disapproval transformed into something like awe. "Where did you learn to play like that?" she whispered, leaning close so Lily could hear her over the continuing ovation. "The community music school downtown," Lily answered automatically. "Before they lost their funding." Understanding flashed across Ms. Reed's face. The same music school the Harrison Foundation was raising money to save tonight. Mr. Winters had approached the stage again, along with an older woman Lily recognized from the evening's earlier speeches as Mrs. Harrison herself. "Young lady," Mrs. Harrison said, her eyes bright with unshed tears, "I believe you've just made my point about music education far more eloquently than any speech could." Mr. Winters nodded in agreement. "I'd like to speak with you after the event, if you don't mind, about your future." Lily nodded numbly, still struggling to comprehend what was happening. Over Mrs. Harrison's shoulder she caught sight of Pavel standing by the service entrance, mouth agape. Beyond him, several kitchen staff and waiters had gathered, including Tia, who was jumping up and down silently, both thumbs raised in the air. The 15 minutes were long past, but somehow Lily knew that nothing would ever be the same again. As she stood to acknowledge the applause with a small, shaky bow, her gaze fell on the piano one last time. Not a door to another life, she realized, but perhaps a bridge back to the person she was always meant to be. The applause seemed to go on forever. Lily stood awkwardly beside the piano, unsure what to do with her hands or where to look. No one had prepared her for this moment. There was no protocol in the server handbook for what to do after you abandoned your tables, commandeered a stage, and played Chopin for a room full of millionaires. Mrs. Harrison finally raised her hands, quieting the crowd. "Ladies and gentlemen, I believe we've just witnessed something extraordinary." Her voice carried through the ballroom without need of a microphone. "Would you please introduce yourself, my dear?" Lily stepped closer to the center of the stage, suddenly aware of her server's uniform, the same black and white outfit designed specifically to blend into the background. "I'm Lily Chen," she said, her voice shakier than she would have liked. "I work here at Le Ciel." "Not just work here," Mrs. Harrison corrected gently. "You play beautifully. Where did you study?" The spotlight felt hot on Lily's face. "The Downtown Community Music School. I had a scholarship. Until it closed." A murmur rippled through the crowd. The Downtown Community Music School, the very institution their donations tonight were meant to help reopen. "How fortuitous," Mrs. Harrison said with a warm smile. "I couldn't have planned a better demonstration of why our foundation's work matters. Music belongs to everyone, not just those who can afford private lessons or expensive conservatories." Mr. Winters stepped forward. "I think we can all agree that talent like Lily's deserves nurturing. I'm prepared to double my planned donation. Tonight." Another man stood up from a table near the front. "I'll match that." Within moments, a flurry of pledges filled the air. Ms. Reed, looking slightly dazed by this unexpected turn of events, hastily signaled to a staff member to start recording the amounts. Lily stood frozen, unable to fully process what was happening. These people were pledging hundreds of thousands of dollars because of her playing. It didn't seem real. Mrs. Harrison leaned close to her. "I think you've done more for our fundraising efforts in 10 minutes than I could have done with an hour of speeches. Thank you." "I should get back to my tables," Lily said automatically. Her mind was still catching up to reality, falling back on the familiar. Mrs. Harrison looked surprised, then laughed. "I suppose you should, though I doubt anyone will be focusing on their dessert after that performance." As Lily made her way off the stage, her legs felt wobbly, as if she'd run a marathon. The adrenaline that had carried her through the performance was fading, leaving her lightheaded and slightly disoriented. Pavel met her at the bottom of the steps, his expression a mix of awe and confusion. "That was unexpected," he said, which might have been the biggest understatement of the year. "I'm sorry for leaving my tables," Lily began. Pavel shook his head. Tia covered them. "And after what just happened," he gestured vaguely toward the room where the energy had transformed completely. People who had been quietly polite all evening were now animated, talking excitedly across tables. "I think Mr. Chen will forgive you." As if on cue, Lily's phone buzzed in her pocket. A text from Mr. Chen. "Office tomorrow, 10 a.m. Her stomach dropped. Despite Pavel's reassurance, that didn't sound like forgiveness. It sounded like she was about to lose her job. "Back to work," Pavel said, not unkindly. "Dessert service is starting." Lily nodded and headed toward the kitchen to collect her assigned dessert trays. As she moved through the room, something strange happened. People noticed her. Not in the way guests normally noticed servers, with a raised hand or a snap of fingers when they wanted something. They noticed her as a person with smiles and nods of recognition. A woman at table 10 reached out and touched Lily's arm as she passed. "That was beautiful, dear. Simply beautiful." "Thank you," Lily murmured, still not used to being seen. The kitchen. The staff erupted into excited whispers as she entered. Tia rushed over and pulled her into a quick hug. "You never told me you could play like that. I nearly dropped a tray of champagne flutes when I heard you. Where did you learn to do that?" "It was a long time ago," Lily said, still feeling like she was dreaming. "I should thank you for covering my tables." Tia waved her hand dismissively. "Are you kidding? That was the most exciting thing that's ever happened at one of these stuffy galas. Did you see their faces? Priceless." The kitchen staff had so many questions, but the desserts weren't going to serve themselves. Lily and the others loaded their trays and returned to the ballroom, where the atmosphere had completely transformed. The room buzzed with energy, and conversation centered around what they'd just witnessed. As Lily served chocolate mousse to table 12, Mr. Winters looked up at her with a kind smile. "Miss Chen, I was serious about speaking with you after the event. I'm the director of the City Philharmonic Orchestra, and I believe we have things to discuss." Lily nearly dropped the dessert. The City Philharmonic was world-renowned. She'd never been able to afford tickets, but she'd sometimes stood outside the concert hall on performance nights listening to the muffled music through the walls. I don't understand," she stammered. "We should talk about your future," he said simply. "Perhaps over coffee next week? Here's my card." He handed her a cream-colored business card with elegant embossing. Lily tucked it carefully into her pocket, afraid it might disappear if she didn't hold on to it tightly. The remainder of the evening passed in a blur. Lily went through the motions of her job, clearing plates, refilling water glasses, bringing coffee. But her mind was elsewhere, trying to make sense of everything that had happened. By midnight, the last guests were departing, leaving behind empty glasses and crumpled napkins. The servers began the familiar routine of cleanup, but tonight it felt different. Lily kept touching the card in her pocket, reassuring herself it was still there, still real. As she gathered discarded programs, from the tables Lily noticed Mrs. Harrison approaching, accompanied by a small group of Foundation board members. "Miss Chen," Mrs. Harrison said warmly, "we've been discussing your performance. Would you be open to playing at the grand reopening of the Downtown Community Music School? We're accelerating our timeline thanks to tonight's exceptional donations." Iti blinked in surprise. "You want me to play? At an official event?" "Not just play," said one of the board members, a gray-haired woman with kind eyes. "We'd like you to speak as well. Your story, working here while harboring such talent, it's exactly what our foundation is trying to address. Talent shouldn't be sidelined by financial circumstances." "I'm not sure I'm a good public speaker," Lily admitted. Mrs. Harrison smiled. "You communicated more eloquently through your music tonight than most people manage with words. But we understand, if it's too much. Please think about it." Another board member stepped forward. "And regardless of your decision about the event, we'd like to offer you something else. The foundation is establishing a new fellowship program for musicians who had to abandon their training due to financial hardship. We'd be honored if you'd consider being our first fellow." "What would that mean exactly?" Lily asked, trying to keep her voice steady. "Funding to complete your education, access to instruments and practice space, mentorship from established musicians, and a living stipend so you wouldn't have to—" He gestured around the ballroom. "Well, so you could focus on your music." The room seemed to tilt slightly. Lily reached out to steady herself against a chair. "This is a lot to take in," she said quietly. "Of course it is," Mrs. Harrison said. "Here's my card as well. Take some time to think about everything. We can meet next week to discuss details." Another card joined Mr. Winters in Lily's pocket. 2 cards. 2 possibilities she hadn't even dared to dream about just hours ago. As the foundation members moved away, Tia sidled up beside her. "So are you going to tell me what that was all about? You look like you've seen a ghost." "Not a ghost," Lily said. "More like a future I thought was dead." "Cryptic much?" Tia laughed. "Come on, spill it while we finish cleanup." As they folded tablecloths and stacked chairs, Lily told Tia everything. The fellowship offer, the invitation to perform, Mr. Winters' interest in meeting with her. "Holy crap," Tia said when she finished. "You're going to be famous. Don't forget us little people when you're touring the world." "I'm still a waitress with a 10 a.m. meeting with Mr. Chen tomorrow," Lily reminded her. "A meeting that's probably about firing me for abandoning my post." "Are you kidding? After the donation frenzy you caused? He should be giving you a raise. Besides, Mrs. Harrison owns like half the restaurant group. She wouldn't let him fire you." Lily wasn't so sure. She'd broken the rules regardless of how it turned out, and she'd worked for Mr. Chen long enough to know he valued reliability and protocol above all else. As she hung up her apron in the staff room at the end of the night, exhaustion hit her all at once. Her fingers ached from playing after so many years, and her mind was a jumble of conflicting emotions: elation, disbelief, worry, hope. "See you tomorrow?" Tia asked as they walked out together. "If I still have a job," Lily replied. "You'll have a job," Tia said confidently. "Maybe not this one, but something better." They parted ways at the bus stop, Tia heading east while Lily waited for the westbound line. The night air was cool against her skin, helping to clear her head. As she sat on the nearly empty bus, watching the city lights blur past the window, Lily carefully took out the 2 business cards from her pocket. She ran her fingers over the raised lettering, these physical tokens of a possible new direction. Whatever happened tomorrow with Mr. Chen, something had changed tonight. Music, which had been a ghost haunting the edges of her life, was suddenly solid and real again. The path forward wasn't clear yet, but for the first time in years it felt like there was a path at all. The bus rumbled on through the sleeping city, carrying Lily home to her small apartment where a cheap keyboard with 3 broken keys waited. Tonight maybe she would play again. And this time she wouldn't be playing just to remember what she'd lost. She'd be practicing for what might come next. Lily barely slept that night. She lay awake in her small apartment, staring at the ceiling as passing cars sent strips of light sliding across it. The 2 business cards sat on her nightstand, visible evidence that she hadn't dreamed the whole thing. Around 3 in the morning, she gave up on sleep and padded across the room to her keyboard. It was a basic model, bought second-hand years, Ego with 3 keys that no longer worked, and a wobbly stand that threatened to collapse if she played too forcefully. Still, it had been her only connection to music for years. She ran her fingers over the keys without pressing them, remembering how different the grand piano had felt tonight. Responsive, alive, like an extension of herself, rather than a machine she had to coax sound from. Carefully, mindful of her sleeping neighbors, she began to play with the volume turned low. Chopin again, but this time a nocturne. Quiet, thoughtful music for the middle of the night. She had to skip over the broken keys, adjusting the piece in her mind to work around them. Even so, it felt good to play, to let her fingers remember what they had once known so well. By morning, she was exhausted but oddly calm. Whatever happened in Mr. Chen's office, Whatever came next with Mrs. Harrison and Mr. Winters, at least she had rediscovered this part of herself. That alone felt like a victory. She dressed carefully for the meeting with Mr. Chen, choosing a simple blouse and dark pants instead of her usual rushed outfit. On the bus ride to the restaurant, she rehearsed what she would say. An apology, definitely. An explanation, possibly. A plea to keep her job, and she wasn't sure yet. Licielle looked different in daylight. Without the evening's soft lighting and bustling activity, it seemed smaller, more ordinary. The lunch prep staff glanced up as she entered, a few offering smiles or thumbs up. Word had spread quickly. Mr. Chen's office was at the back of the building, a small room crammed with filing cabinets and a desk perpetually covered in paperwork. The door was open when she arrived, exactly at 10 a.m. "Come in, Lily," Mr. Chen said, not looking up from the invoice he was reviewing. "Close the door." Lily sat in the chair across from his desk, hands folded in her lap, waiting. Mr. Chen was not a man who rushed conversations. Finally, he set down his pen and looked at her directly. His expression gave nothing away. 3 years you've worked. Here, he began. Never late except yesterday. Never a complaint from customers. Always willing to cover shifts when needed. Mr. Chen, about last night. Lily started. He held up a hand. "I'm not finished." She fell silent, bracing herself. "Last night," he continued, "you abandoned your assigned tables during service. You used company property, the piano, without permission. You interrupted the planned program of a high-profile event." Each point felt like a small stone added to a pile. Lily stared at her hands. "And," Mr. Chen said, his tone shifting slightly, "you apparently generated more donation pledges in 10 minutes than the foundation has received in the past 3 galas combined." Lily looked up surprised. The corner of Mr. Chen's mouth twitched, almost a smile. "Mrs. Harrison called me this morning. She was quite enthusiastic about your performance." "I'm sorry I left my post," Lily said. "It won't happen again." Mr. Chen leaned back in his chair. "No, I don't imagine it will." He paused, studying her face. "Because I don't think you'll be serving tables much longer." Lily's stomach sank. So she was being fired after all. "Mrs. Harrison mentioned something about a fellowship," Mr. Chen continued. "And Mr. Winters has apparently been calling the restaurant all morning trying to reach you." Lily blinked. "You're not firing me?" Mr. Chen actually laughed at that, a short, surprised sound. "Fire you? After the publicity you've brought to Licielle? The event photographer got pictures of your performance. They're already on social media with our name tagged. We couldn't buy that kind of advertising." Relief flooded through her. "So I still have my job?" "For as long as you want it," Mr. Chen said, "though I suspect you'll have other options soon." Mrs. Harrison seemed quite determined to rescue you from food service, as she put it. He reached into his desk drawer and pulled out a small envelope. "But until then, I thought you might want these." Lily opened the envelope to find a set of keys for the baby grand in the main dining room, Mr. Chen explained. "If you want to practice before or after your shifts, it mostly sits there looking expensive anyway." Lily stared at the keys, unable to speak for a moment. This small act of kindness felt almost as significant as the grand offers from the night before. "Thank you," she managed finally. Mr. Chen nodded, already turning back to his paperwork. "Don't mention it. Now, don't you have some important calls to return?" Lily left the office feeling lighter than she had in years. She had expected the worst and instead received understanding, even support. It was as if the world had suddenly decided to be kind to her after years of indifference. In the staff room, she used her phone to call the numbers on both business cards. Mrs. Harrison's assistant scheduled a meeting for later that week to discuss the fellowship details. Mr. Winters himself answered his phone and arranged to meet her for coffee the next day. "I've been thinking about your playing all night," he told her. "There's a raw quality to it, not unpolished but authentic. It's rare, especially in classical performance. I'm eager to discuss possibilities with you." By the time Lily started her regular evening shift, she felt as if she were walking in a dream. Customers she'd served dozens of times before suddenly recognized her, asking if she was the pianist from last night's gala. Fellow staff members treated her differently too, not dramatically, but with a new sort of respect, as if they were seeing her properly for the first time. There she is. Our secret weapon, Tia called when Lily entered the kitchen. I was taking bets on whether we'd see you again or if you'd already signed a record deal. Lily laughed. Not quite. But I do have some meetings lined up. Told you, Tia said triumphantly. Mr. Chen would be crazy to let you go after last night. He's actually letting me use the dining room piano to practice, Lily said, still surprised by it herself. Tia's eyes widened. Seriously? Mr. Don't touch anything that's not your job, Chen. Now I've heard everything. The evening service went smoothly. Lily moved through her familiar routines, pouring wine and serving dishes with the practiced efficiency of someone who had done it thousands of times. Yet everything felt different. She caught herself standing straighter, making more eye contact, speaking with more confidence. It wasn't just that other people saw her differently now, she saw herself differently too. After closing, when the last customers had gone and the kitchen staff were finishing cleanup, Lily found herself standing beside the baby grand in the main dining room. Most of the lights were off, just a few dim ones remaining for the staff to see by as they closed up. The polished black surface of the piano reflected these lights like stars. Lily ran her hand along its curved edge, feeling the smooth, cool finish under her fingertips. Go ahead, said a voice behind her. Lily turned to see Mr. Chen watching from the doorway. That's why I gave you the keys. She nodded gratefully and sat at the bench. The room was nearly empty now, just Mr. Chen, a few lingering staff members, curious to hear her play again. An intimate audience so different from the hundreds at the gala. Lily began with something simple, a piece she'd played as a child, Bach's Prelude in C major, just flowing arpeggios that rippled like water. The restaurant's acoustics were different from the ballroom's, warmer, closer, the sound wrapping around her instead of projecting outward. As she played, she felt the tension of the day, the worry, the excitement, the uncertainty, melting away. This was why she had fallen in love with music in the first place, not for applause or recognition, but for this feeling, this moment of perfect connection between herself and the instrument, between the notes on the page and the sound in the air. She moved from Bach to Chopin, then to Debussy, letting one piece flow into another without planning. Time seemed to suspend itself. She didn't know how long she played, maybe 20 minutes, maybe an hour. When she finally stopped, she noticed that a small crowd had gathered. The entire kitchen staff had paused their cleanup to listen. A few even had tears in their eyes. You've been hiding this from us for 3 years? Said Hector, the head chef, shaking his head in disbelief. Playing like that while carrying plates of my food? Lily smiled, a bit embarrassed by the attention. I didn't exactly have opportunities to show it off. Well, you do now, Tia said, coming to stand beside her. So what's next? The fellowship? The orchestra? Both? I don't know yet, Lily admitted. It all still feels unreal. Whatever you decide, Mr. Chen said from where he still stood in the doorway. Your job will be here if you need it. But I hope you don't. He said this last part quietly, almost to himself, before nodding goodnight and heading to his office. As the staff dispersed to finish closing duties, Tia lingered by the piano. You know, she said thoughtfully, I've been serving rich people their overpriced dinners for 5 years, watching them celebrate their successes, talk about their opportunities, their connections. Always wondered what that would feel like, to have doors just open for you. I never expected this, Lily said. Any of it. Maybe that's the point, Tia replied. The best opportunities are the ones you don't see coming, like a waitress sitting down at a piano during a fancy gala. Lily laughed. When you put it that way, I sound slightly unhinged. The best kind of unhinged, Tia assured her. The brave kind. After helping finish the closing duties, Lily stepped out into the night. The city was quieter now. Most of the shops closed. The traffic thinned to occasional passing cars. She didn't head straight to the bus stop as she usually would. Instead, she walked slowly, looking up at the buildings and stars, feeling the cool night air on her face. Tomorrow she would meet with Mr. Winters. Later in the week, with Mrs. Harrison. Big conversations about her future, about possibilities she had stopped allowing herself to imagine years ago. But tonight belonged to the simple joy of having played again, of rediscovering something she had thought lost. Whatever came next, she had already found something precious, the part of herself that had been silenced for too long. As she finally turned toward the bus stop, a sense of peace settled over her. The path ahead was uncertain, full of decisions and challenges she couldn't yet see. But for the first time in years, she was eager to discover where it might lead. 6 months later, Lily stood backstage at the downtown community music school's newly renovated concert hall, trying to calm her racing heart. Through the heavy curtain, she could hear the buzz of conversation as people found their seats. A full house, they'd told her, 400 people waiting to hear her play. 5 minutes, Miss Chen, the stage manager said with a reassuring smile. Lily nodded, smoothing down the front of her dark blue concert dress. A gift from Mrs. Harrison, who had insisted that artists need proper performance attire. The dress felt foreign after years of wearing a server's uniform, but she had to admit it fit perfectly. She peeked through a small gap in the curtain. The hall looked nothing like she remembered from her childhood recitals. The peeling paint and worn carpets were gone, replaced by warm wood paneling and comfortable new seats. A gleaming Steinway concert grand dominated the stage, spotlit and waiting. In the front row, she spotted familiar faces, Tia, grinning excitedly and nudging the person next to her, Mr. Chen looking uncharacteristically relaxed in a suit instead of his usual work clothes. Even Hector and some of the kitchen staff from Le Ciel had come. Behind them sat Mrs. Harrison and the foundation board members, all of whom had taken a personal interest in Lily's progress over the past months. And beside them was Mr. Winters, who had become both mentor and champion during her whirlwind journey. The journey that had started with an impulsive decision to sit at a piano during a luxury gala. The past 6 months felt like both an eternity and an instant. After her meetings with Mrs. Harrison and Mr. Winters, everything had happened so quickly. The fellowship had provided enough money for Lily to reduce her hours at Le Ciel to just 2 dinner services a week, freeing her time for intensive piano study. Mr. Winters had connected her with Professor Lin, a renowned piano teacher who had initially been skeptical of taking on a student with such an unusual background. "You have raw talent," Professor Lin had told her after their first lesson, "but years of technical gaps to fill. It will be hard work." And it had been. Hours of scales and exercises to rebuild her technique. Studying music theory she'd only half learned as a teenager, learning to read complex scores again. Some days her fingers ached so badly she could barely hold a coffee cup. But there had been moments of pure joy too. The first time she played through a difficult piece without mistakes. The afternoon Professor Lin had listened to her interpretation of a Beethoven sonata and simply said, "Yes, that's it." The day Mr. Winters had invited her to sit in on orchestra rehearsals and afterward introduced her to the musicians as a pianist you'll be hearing much more from. And now tonight, her first public recital in nearly a decade, inaugurating the reopened music school that had given her a start all those years ago. 2 minutes, the stage manager whispered. Lily took a deep breath, closing her eyes. She thought of all the paths that had led to this moment. The childhood lessons she'd loved, the years of struggle after her parents' financial troubles, the long shifts at Le Ciel, and that one moment of courage, or madness, when she'd decided to play. She thought of what Tia had said that night. The best opportunities are the ones you don't see coming. The stage lights dimmed, signaling the audience to quiet down. Lily heard Mrs. Harrison's voice as she welcomed everyone and shared the story of the music school's revival, fueled by the record-breaking donations from the night of the gala. And, now, Mrs. Harrison concluded, "It is my great pleasure to introduce a young artist whose journey embodies everything our foundation stands for, the belief that musical talent deserves nurturing, regardless of financial circumstances. Please welcome to the stage Lily Chen. The curtain parted. Lily stepped into the light, momentarily blinded by its brightness. The applause washed over her as she crossed to the piano, her steps steady despite her nervousness. She had practiced. This moment too, the walk, the bow, the way to sit and adjust the bench. As the applause faded, silence filled the hall. That sacred moment before music begins, when possibility hangs in the air. Lily placed her hands on the keys and began to play. She had chosen to start with Debussy's Clair de Lune, the same piece she'd played at the Gala. A nod to where this journey had begun. But this time, with months of dedicated practice behind her, she played it with new confidence and deeper understanding. The music rose and fell like gentle waves, filling the concert hall with its dreamlike quality. Lily felt herself relax into the performance, the nervousness fading as she connected with the music. From Debussy, she moved to Bach, then to a challenging Beethoven sonata that she had struggled with for months before finally mastering. The program she and Professor Lin had carefully constructed showcased both her technical progress and her natural expressiveness. For her final piece, she had chosen Chopin's Ballet No. 1 in G minor, the piece from the Gala, the piece that had changed everything. As she played the opening notes, memories flooded back. The weight of hundreds of eyes on her back, the fear of failure, the moment when muscle memory had taken over. This time was different. She wasn't playing on instinct and adrenaline. She was playing with hard-won skill and deliberate artistry. Every phrase was shaped with intention, every dynamic shift carefully considered. When she struck the final chords, there was a moment of absolute stillness before the hall erupted in applause. Lily rose from the bench, her legs slightly shaky, and turned to face the audience. They were on their feet, all of them. Tia was whistling loudly with fingers in her mouth. Mr. Chen was clapping with uncharacteristic enthusiasm. Professor Lin, usually so reserved, was nodding with approval. Lily bowed once, twice, 3 times as the applause continued. Someone handed her flowers, a massive bouquet of white lilies and blue irises. She clutched them to her chest, overwhelmed by the moment. As she finally left the stage, Mrs. Harrison was waiting in the wings. "Magnificent," she said, embracing Lily carefully around the flowers. "And to think, we might never have discovered you if not for a pianist with food poisoning." Lily laughed. "Sometimes life has strange ways of pushing us where we need to go." "Indeed it does. Now, are you ready to meet your admirers? There's quite a line forming at the reception already." The post-concert reception was held in the Music, school's newly renovated lobby. Lily moved through the crowd, accepting congratulations and answering questions, still in a state of happy disbelief. Mr. Winters found her by the refreshment table, looking pleased. "Exceptional performance," he said. "The orchestra board members were impressed. They're quite interested in having you perform the Mozart Piano Concerto with us next season." Lily nearly choked on her sparkling water. "With the full orchestra? Are you serious?" "Completely serious. We'll talk details soon." He smiled and moved away as another group approached to compliment her. Among them was a teenage girl, hanging back shyly while her parents spoke to Lily. When they finished, the girl stepped forward. "I just started lessons here," she said, her voice quiet but determined. "They gave me a scholarship. Mrs. Harrison told us your story, how you used to study here and then had to stop, and now you're back. It made me feel like maybe I could do it too." Lily looked at the girl, 14, maybe 15, with the same hungry look in her eyes that Lily recognized from her own childhood. "What's your name?" Lily asked. "Zoe," the girl replied. "Well, Zoe, if there's one thing I've learned, it's that the path isn't always straight. Sometimes there are detours and delays, but if the music is in you, it finds a way out eventually." The girl nodded seriously. Would you sign my program?" As Lily signed her name, she noticed Tia approaching, trailed by several SEAL staff members. "There's our star," Tia announced, pulling Lily into a hug. "I'm telling everyone I knew you when you were just serving appetizers." "I still serve appetizers 2 nights a week," Lily reminded her with a laugh. "Not for much longer, I'm guessing," Tia said, raising an eyebrow. Not after that performance. It was true. Professor Lin had been encouraging Lily to focus full-time on her music, and with the fellowship covering her living expenses and the prospect of paid performances on the horizon, it was becoming possible. "I don't know," Lily said. "I might keep one shift, to stay grounded." Mr. Chen, who had joined their group, nodded approvingly. "Smart. Success can make people forget where they came from. You won't forget." "No," Lily agreed. "I won't forget." Later, when most guests had left and the staff were cleaning up, Lily found herself alone in the concert hall. She walked back onto the stage, now dimly lit, and sat at the piano one more time. She played softly just for herself, a simple melody her mother used to hum when Lily was small. No technique, no performance, just the pure joy of making music. Sound from the back of the hall made her look up. Mrs. Harrison stood in the doorway watching. "Sorry," Lily said, starting to rise. "I should have asked permission." Mrs. Harrison shook her head. "Never apologize for playing. That's what this piano is for. What all pianos are for." She walked down the center aisle until she reached the front row, then sat down. "What was that piece? I didn't recognize it." "Just a tune my mother used to sing," Lily explained. "Nothing famous." "Those are often the most important pieces," Mrs. Harrison said thoughtfully. "The ones that connect us to our beginnings." Lily nodded, running her fingers lightly over the keys without pressing them. "I've been thinking about that a lot lately, about beginnings and endings." "And what have you concluded? That they're often the same thing?" Lily smiled. "The end of one chapter is the beginning of another." "Wise words from someone so young," Mrs. Harrison said. "Not wisdom," Lily replied. "Experience." She looked out at the empty hall, imagining it full again. Next time with an orchestra behind her, perhaps, or with students of her own someday, when she had more to teach. The path ahead was clearer now, though still unfolding. There would be more lessons, more practice, more performances, successes and failures, growth and challenges. But the music would be there, as it had always been, sometimes in the foreground, sometimes waiting patiently in the background, but always a part of her. "I should go," Mrs. Harrison said, rising. "They're waiting to lock up." Lily stood and closed the piano lid gently. "Thank you," she said simply, "for everything." "No, my dear. Thank you for reminding us all why we do this work." Mrs. Harrison smiled. "Now go celebrate. You've earned it." As Lily gathered her things and prepared to leave, she took one last look at the stage from the back of the hall. 6 months ago, she had been a waitress with buried dreams and a keyboard with broken keys. Now she was a pianist with a future, full of possibilities, all because she had found the courage to sit at a piano during a luxury gala and show the world what had been there all along.